How's it going, sports world? This is the spinoff brought to you by the Scarlet and the Cream Husker podcast. I am your host for this segment, Brian Knutson. With me today is Ron Coleman Jr. This man he was more or less just given to me as reference from Houston Alexander, and I'm so glad to have this on. This man is a four-time state wrestling champion from Omaha North, currently doing MMA. Had his first fight back on November 21st. Another one coming up, I believe you said January 30th. Ron,
hmm
thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, thank you. It's an honor to be here. It's a blessing, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this goes.
Awesome. We just talked about it right before we started recording. Wrestling was something I did in junior high and high school. Really kind of fell in love with it because it was that one-on-one. There's no teammates there to help you.
Yeah,
There's no coaches other than just off the circle on the mat trying to yell at you what to do, but you really don't hear that stuff. And it was the one-on-one competition. What was it that really drew you into wrestling in school?
honestly, it's a family tradition. My dad wrestled, my uncles wrestled, everybody in my family wrestled. So my dad and my uncle put me on the mat. When I was 2 years old, my dad used to coach at Father Flanagan, and he just always had me on the mat. So I mean, it was just something like most people do skateboarding or tennis or knitting or cooking or boxing. It was wrestling for our family. So even our girls and my sisters wrestle. So we just come from a rich wrestling family. That's just what it was. So my dad used to take me to the high school practices with him at a very young age, and those guys that he coached in high school, I now consider those my uncles. So I still keep in touch with a lot of kids that he changed lives. Now they're older, now they're impacting my life as well. So it's a big melting pot.
Man, that is amazing. See, that's why I'm glad I've got you on, because this is things personally I don't know about you, and maybe a lot of my audience doesn't know. And so, with it being basically a legacy, a wrestling family, is did you basically just come out and it was just hit the mat and go?
Pretty much. My dad was a two-time state champ as well. And like I said, that's what we did. My sisters wrestled. We all wrestled at the house, cousins, uncles, you name it. I mean, we wrestled. Like you see people do pickup games at YMCA playing basketball. That's what it was like for us wrestling. Like we wrestled, and was our life. We did football and other sports, but when it came down to wrestling, that's something that we were very passionate about. And we don't take it lightly. We traveled everywhere. I've been in multiple states, probably 15 or 20 states from the time I was 6 to the time I was 18 because of wrestling. Just traveling and being on different teams, being different national teams, met tons of people that I still keep in contact with today. Wrestlers they have their own culture. Like I can meet a wrestler from Florida and we'll become brothers instantly because that's just what the culture brings, because the sport of wrestling is grueling. So we love it.
Man, that's awesome. See, that's what I loved about wrestling when I did it. Um, you're out there. The only thing I really ever heard was my teammates cheering me on. Never really heard the coaches, but man,
Yeah.
and when you win that match, you get your hand raised. It is
Yeah.
one of the most amazing feelings, and that's what kind of sucked me into that right away. As I won my first match in like 30 seconds, so it was just an amazing feeling. And so, since you started out so young, what was your earliest accomplishment then? At what age was, say, your first tournament title?
So title wise, my first big accomplishment, I was 6 years old and I won nationals, Tulsa Nationals in Oklahoma. That was my biggest tournaments to start off. Like I said, I wrestled in many tournaments, but that was the one that put me on the platform. So from the time I was 6 to the time I was probably 18, I've probably been ranked top 5 in the country probably about 10 times. I've been won a few times for wrestling. So 6 years old was the start point where I really kind of set the bar.
Wow, that is a really young age to start out. So, was it basically just every weekend? Was it almost tournament after tournament, just year after year? Then,
Yes, and what I loved that my dad did, he didn't allow me to wrestle year round. You have other people that wrestle year round, but he allowed me to enjoy being a kid and enjoy other sports. So you have other kids who wrestle year round, and they were phenomenal. And thank God I was still phenomenal, but I only wrestled during the season. So he allowed me to play football, he allowed me to play baseball, and do track and other sports to kind of get my mind away. But when it was time to wrestle, I mean, it was grueling. I mean, we went after it. So yes, I met a lot of friends. Met a lot of family members, and it was exciting. It's definitely getting your hand raised. What I find intriguing about it is that when you do all that time in practice and you in there hour and a half, 2 hours, then that little 6 minute match or that 5 minute match feel like the world is on fire. It's like here in practice for an hour and a half or two, and then you get out there for 3 minutes and you're dying. So it's funny how that works out.
Yeah, I remember that in matches. You go 3 rounds for 3 minutes, and you've got the worst dry mouth you've ever felt in your life. Uh, it is something I didn't miss about the sport, but it was being one-on-one on that mat. To me, there was nothing else that compared to it in any other sport I ever did. You mentioned that you did other sports in the off seasons. You did football, you did baseball. What positions did you play in football and baseball?
So honestly, growing up, baseball was I love baseball more than any sport that I played, actually. And my dad tells people that I was better in baseball than I was in any other sport. So I was a pitcher and third base. I love pitching and I love playing third base. That was fun. Baseball was recess. It was just like an escape. You only had to run around the bases for conditioning. I mean, it wasn't taxing. You swing the bat. So it was fun. But in football, I was always fast. I was a big kid, but I was fast. Of course, I had to play the line because of weight limit restrictions. But once I got to high school, that's when I started playing running back. So I was freshman and sophomore year, I was running back at 215 pounds. And junior, senior years, I was a running back at 240.
Oh my goodness. I cannot believe you didn't get an offer from somebody. My gosh.
Yeah, what happened, it was weird. In college, I mean, not in college, but in high school, a lot of the schools, and I'm not going to name them, but a lot of schools that we know that we're currently talking about told my face that I was too good of a wrestler to come to their school and not wrestle. It's like the Nebraskas, the Iowas. I mean, I was at the time, I was a 4-time state champ. I was a heavyweight, top 5 in the country. And it was like, we can't pass this up. You need to wrestle. And I just kind of held my gut. Like, I just didn't want to wrestle anymore in college. My dreams was to make it to the NFL. I never dreamed to make it to the Olympics. That wasn't my goal. So I really kind of did my last match at state, won it, and set my shoes down. And, everybody was like, come to college, wrestle, you're too good. And we'll walk on to play football. But that wasn't my goals. So I stuck to my gut, and Southeast Missouri State said, hey, look, you can come down here and play. So I went to go play football in SEMO.
Wow. So is that a decision that was your dad 100% behind that you didn't want to go to college to be a wrestler, but rather play football?
Oh, yes. He one thing I love about my dad, he supported any and every decision we made. Now, he made sure that the decision was smart. His main goal is that I got a degree, because he knew that, sports was only going to last so far, but the degree lasts forever. So his main concern was making sure that we had that degree. So he supported whatever decision he made, we made it. But he also always told us that whatever decision you make, you stand on it as a man and you follow through with it. So that's what it was for me.
And see, that's sound advice. I think anybody should follow that, really. If you're going to make the decision, you better stand behind it. Otherwise, somebody's going to call you out for going against it somewhere down the road.
Yeah, and it's your dream, so you got to live with, like, if I'd have wrestled, and I think I'd have did a really, really good job, but it'd have been more for other people, and football was for me.
As a football guy, I honestly can't say I blame you. I mean, obviously, Husker football is what it is. So, all right, let's see. So you won 4 straight state titles at Omaha North. You won 2 at light heavyweight, and you won, I believe you said, your junior and senior year at heavyweight.
Yes.
What was it like to make that jump in the weight class? Because I remember when I wrestled, keeping weight, maintaining weight, that was the key goal. And if you were going to jump a weight class, you had to really be on point and focused, and you had to make sure that's what you wanted to do. So what was the biggest challenge between jumping from light heavyweight to heavyweight?
The biggest challenge was my junior year with the jump because I wasn't a traditional heavyweight. I was maybe weighing 235, 240, towards the middle end of the season. I know you come in about 250 because of football, and then you cut weight. So I was wrestling at about 235 to 245, which at the time, heavyweight was 275. So I had some guys, 6'4", 6'5", right at the cut, so the weight and the strength was a battle. I really started lifting, incorporating more lifting my junior year. Like I would literally go to wrestling practice, and then right after wrestling practice, I would go lift because like I was technically a small heavyweight, so I had to. Their weight and their power alone was taxing. So I really had to increase my lifting. So like I lifted a lot my junior year just to kind of deal with that. But then my senior year, it was just kind of, hate to say it, like a cakewalk. I just kind of did my thing. But
so in your senior year, then did you end up seeing most of the same opponents you saw in your junior year, or did you pretty much see the same almost all 4 years?
No, my senior year had some new guys, but at that time I was kind of my body matured some more. I was walking around at about 250. I was feeling stronger, so my body just really took over itself. So the strength wasn't a variable. My technique increased, so it was a little easier. I mean, I still worked my butt off, but it just.
So you said with junior year being the year you jumped to heavyweight. Did you find how many matches did it take into that season for you to really start to set in stone and have everything set right in place where you want it? This is how I'm going to be physically, mentally. I'm ready. I'm prepared. How long did that take through that season?
One tournament. It was the at the. I remember being in the finals and I shot a double on this kid and I didn't finish it. He didn't score on me, but I didn't finish it. And I was talking to my dad. I was like, yeah, I probably can't do that. Cause at 215, everybody was 215. So, and I was strong. I was fast. I shoot a double, take you down. Cause I wasn't, I was a big heavyweight, but I moved like a light guy. You're right. So I shot a double on it. He stuffed me. I got back up. I was like, okay, I can't shoot that shot no more. It was that, then I moved to outside singles, inside trips, ankle picks, low singles and stuff like that to kind of work from there.
I see. My favorite move when I wrestled, I tried to end it quick, so I just go with a hip toss.
Yeah.
How hard is that to do in the heavyweight division? Is that something you see very often, or is that something somebody likes to go to the well to a lot?
Honestly, it's not hard at all because you got to think about it. Heavyweight, everybody being strong and they want to lean on you. So you lean into them and they lean back. It's time to take them for a ride. I love throwing. That's one of the first things that my dad taught us as a kid was throwing. So the throwing aspect, honestly, when I was at 215, that's what kind of set me apart from a lot of other kids. Because you got to think about it. I was 14 years old going against juniors and seniors, 17, 18 years old. So they were a lot stronger than me, more developed. I'm still 14. And so I had to throw them. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to work with what you know and what you know best. So if you don't stick to that, you're setting yourself up for failure, I think. All right. Let's see. You had 4 straight state titles. Like I said, one alone is just that's an amazing feat to accomplish in high school wrestling. Now, out of the 4, which one of them has had the most lasting impact on you? Which one has stuck out in your mind the most? Which was just meant that much?
Definitely the first one. The first one was the hardest because you got to think about it. Up until Gable Stevenson, he wrestles for Minnesota and he's a heavyweight and he also wrestles on the U.S. team. There has been no freshman to take state above, I think it was like 170 in the country. So, I was the first one to do it at 215 as a freshman. And, Gabe Stevenson ended up doing it 4 times at heavyweight, this past 2 years. But up until then, there hasn't been nobody in the country to do that, So that definitely was the hardest one. Like I said, once again, I was 14 going against a guy who was like 45-0 in the finals, who had beat me previously in a year, a few months before state. So that was definitely the hardest one. You don't see 4-timers at heavyweight. you see them at, 106 and the lighter weights, but to come in, 14 years old, going against somebody who's 17, 18 years old and their body's already developed, that was definitely the hardest part. I pushed myself, I wrestled with adults, and I got to commend my dad because I told him that I wanted to take state 4 years in a row when I was in like 6th or 7th grade. So when I said that, he was like, well, this is what we got to do. So he made me start wrestling with the high school kids when I was a 6th grader and 7th grader and 8th grader, like getting beat up every single day by the kids. And then I met a coach named Desmond Wilford who took my wrestling game over the top, and we just kind of went for it, and it happened.
So when you won that first one, was that just kind of set in your mind from there is the next three, that's the ultimate goal and it's right in sight and there's going to be no problem getting there? Is that basically how it felt after the first?
It didn't, because the guy I beat was a junior, and I knew he's going to come back next year. So, this kid, because I beat him. I was technically the underdog. I wasn't supposed to win that match, because like I said, he beat me earlier in the season. He's a junior, 45-0, and hats off to him. He was a tremendous guy. So I beat him in the finals. And then the next year, which was crazy how the state of Nebraska does things, but the next year, you got me, I'm number one, he's number two. They put us in the semifinals instead of letting us wrestle in the finals at state. So I had him in my semifinals match to in the state title match. I mean, everybody, we had police around the mat. Like, it was police in the stands. Like, everybody watched that match because they knew whoever won that match was going to win state,
Man, that's amazing. That's the type of stuff I always enjoyed. If I didn't have a match going on, but somebody's got a huge one going on, I'm over there watching. I don't care if it's my team or not. I've got to see this. I've got to see two guys that are just amazing at the sport go at it. All
and
right.
It was arena stopped.
And see, that's what you look forward to. So have you ever gone back and watched that and just kind of taken it all in as not being the one on the map, but just being a spectator watching it?
Yes. You know what? It's funny you say that. Whenever I get into my fight camp and my fight mode, I got to remind myself about who I am, because I'm huge about, mentalism and in my head. I'm in my head about a lot of things. And I love what, Mike Tyson says. He actually admits about the fears of fighting and the fears of failure, and how even though he was this monster guy, everybody feared him, all the mental battles that he had in his head about himself, about doubt, about fear. He was honest and open about them. And then sometimes I battle those same things. So I actually go back and watch some of my tapes. And my dad used to always say this when I was a kid, like, you could learn from that guy. When you watch yourself, you could learn from that guy. So I actually go back and watch it, and I'm amazed, like, dang, like, that was really you. But I'm so used to being in my body. So when you're saying looking at it from a spectator's point of view, I do that just to kind of gain knowledge, like, dang, that really was me. And that's still who you are today, and even more, so yes, I do.
That's awesome, man. Because I would almost take it as almost reviewing tape, as see, just like you would in football, you go back, you review a previous game, you see where you may have made a mistake, and it's got to be the same thing in wrestling. You can go back, review the match, see where you may have made a mistake, where you could improve. Is that basically the same thing you do? You just basically go back and watch tape on past matches.
Yes, and it helps you to remember what you can do, so. Works, especially in the MMA world, realizing that I could really bring my skills of wrestling to this arena. I don't have to be a boxer. I don't have to be a jiu-jitsu guy. I don't have to be a kicker, even though I have those qualities. I can really bring my wrestling to the table in a way that's probably not seen, so I'm excited.
I see. I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to transition into your MMA career now. I brought this up. You had your first match back at November 21st, I believe it was. How did that go? What did it feel like just before that match? What was going through your head? Were there butterflies? What was going on?
The biggest nerves I've ever felt in my life. It was because it wasn't like, so somebody tell me, hey, I need you to go wrestle in 30 minutes or in 5 minutes. I'm like, cool, I didn't wrestle my whole life. I'm good. Somebody tell me, hey, we about to go play football. Boom, I'm gonna put the pads on. I'm good. But you tell me to go fight, which is something that I haven't done, as well as I've had wrestling or as well as I had football. I mean, the nerves that's really, it gassed me. Like being nervous, being anxious, my family there, my crowd there, the fears of failure, the how you're going to do, you know, the expectations that you have for yourself and the expectations that people put on you. It was nerve. Oh my gosh. I was trying my best to keep calm. And I mean, when you watch the fight, it's funny, like everything in that fight, I wasn't moving my head. My head was still. Like it just like I was an open target, but you know, I thank God I came out on top. But yes, the nerves, it definitely fatigued me. Oh my gosh, I was tired, you know, because I was so anxious and you know, I was so I wasn't loose at all. So that's definitely something that we're building on.
So since you've made the transition to MMA, what have you had to, I guess, alter as far as your training habits, as far as different styles that you may use, as far as stand-up goes? What's been the biggest transition from your all-out workout with wrestling to what you have to focus on for MMA?
Honestly, you would think that because of wrestling that you had to switch your stance, but that's what I thank my dad about. He made us learn both sides. So traditionally, a lot of right-handers are right leg leads, and you know they go from there. But I'm a right-hander, but I do everything on my left side. So I wrestle left leg lead. I can wrestle right, but I wrestle left leg lead, which works for boxing because in boxing or MMA or stand-up game, you switch. If you're right-handed, you want your left leg lead forward because your right hand power hand, you set up with your jab, right hand, power hand. So what happens is now because I wrestle left leg lead, I'm already in my left leg stance. So the transition for as far as footwork isn't anything that's difficult. So that's a huge plus. A lot of things are different. Front steps, because you know in wrestling you take more back steps and pivot, but the actual to the front actually has been, you know, somewhat of a challenge. But you know, that's some of the main things. And keeping your hands up is probably the hardest thing that I had to, you know, because wrestlers so used to keep them low or shake. How to keep them up here the whole time, you know. So it's just different things like that that I just got to adjust to.
So obviously your first match was back in November. Was there anything special you did to try and kind of keep that level head, keep the nerves in check in the locker room? Is there anything that, yeah, I mean, did you have to clear the locker room, just a moment of silence to clear the head?
And
What was the preparation?
I tried everything. I tried everything that was calming down. The biggest thing what happened was I didn't know how the time works. So you know in wrestling, you know I warmed up when they're at 152 because I know at 152 they got 60, 70, 89, 215. So at 152 I get a good drill in. Then I kind of got about 10 more minutes where I can stretch, and I got about 5 minutes to calm back down, get some water, hydrate, go wrestle. Right. So I knew my formula. I didn't know a formula for this. So I get there and they're like, okay, you're up in 6 fights. So, okay, I'm getting ready. It's 6 fights out, boom, boom, boom. But that 6 fights lasted like an hour and a half. So I had to like kept getting ready and stop, get ready and stop, get ready and stop. So I'm trying to be focused for an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. Like it was draining, you know. So that was something that, you know, me and my camp, we just got to look at.
And see, that's got to be taxing. I know as a football player, you're in that locker room 3-4 hours before game time, and that was the worst part of it. Just that anticipation of everything. You starting to go over everything that you've learned in the week. As far as MMA goes, what part of your game is going to be? Your wrestling's obviously okay. That no question there. Is your stand-up game what you really want to work on right now?
Yes, definitely stand-up game. You know, I look at what the word MMA, mixed martial arts, you know, so you definitely have to have a variety, but you have to have it in your backpack. It doesn't have to be something that, you know, you are 100% excellent at. Now, that's something that me as a guy who's really big on technique, I'm going to try to be an expert in everything. But, you know, boxing is definitely one. You have to throw. I mean, everything starts from throwing. So you have to, you know, have good hands, and you have to be confident in what you're throwing. You have to be confident in what's coming back at you. So the hardest part for me when it came to boxing was being comfortable at what's coming in. You know, because anybody can avoid a punch and jump out the way, but can you slip a punch, stay in the pocket, and really follow up with, you know, your combinations? Can you sit there and look at the punch, knowing that it's coming, move slight, move 6 inches, and follow up with your combination? So that's the part of the science that's beautiful to me that I'm really, really learning, especially with leg kicks, you know, placing that shin right in the right spot. You know, when somebody throws a leg kick, checking it to your 2 or checking it to your 1, checking it to your leg kick, you know, just being able to follow up and have confidence about the combinations that you're being taught, you know. So it's definitely an adjustment, but it's a science and it's beautiful. So I'm enjoying it.
So with you coming out of wrestling, you obviously didn't have to worry about taking a punch to the face or a kick to the face. So in MMA, that obviously is something you've royally got to worry about. Have you taken one yet? And if you have, what was that feeling like of that first shot to the head?
So my coach down here, his name is Danny Reese. He's a boxer and been around boxing all his life. Like he's like a young version of Mr. Miyagi, you know, crazy. He's 60 years old, hitting the bag, sparred me. So our very first time sparring, you know, he was 59 at the time, and he's like, I want you to come hit me everything you got. I'm like, dude, like you're old. And my mom like, oh, like, you know, you about 5'8", 5'9", 200 pounds. Like, no, I'm not about. He's like, no, hit me. And you know, so I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna come at you. And I mean, just out technique me, tore me up. He was fast. He was moving. Boom, 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 ba, 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 boom, ba, 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 ba. I mean, he was just, and it was like frustrating. And I'm getting like mad because like everything is coming at me. So I'm trying to like knock him out and boom, 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 boom. You know, so that like I said, the part of you can avoid a punch here, but can you avoid a punch here? Avoid a punch here. So that was the longest transition. That was the hardest part, being able to see the punch, avoid the punch, and be okay with staying in the pocket. That was tough. It took a while for me to get that, and I still got to, you know, work on it. It's still parts of my game, but that to me was the hardest part. You know, he'll tell me, hey, this whole round, nothing but defense. So I can't throw any punches. And I can't back up. I still have to stay in the pocket, stay in the middle like that. Drills like that was very difficult in the beginning. So, but now it's a lot better.
That's good. That's real good. This is something I had to ask because music to me is a huge part of life. To me, music is just the universal language. So I always used music before a match, a game, anything I was getting prepared for. Do you do the same thing? And if so, what's the type of music you like to listen to get into that mental frame?
So it's funny when we're doing boxing in the mornings and stuff like that. You know, he's an older guy, so we always listen to funk, like James Brown, The Temptations, any Gap Band, and we be in there jamming and screaming, Prince, Zapp and Roger. Like we be in there jamming, you know, getting in. I'm like, Coach, this is my song, and I'll be dancing, I'll be punching and singing the lyrics while I'm in there. But honestly, when I'm in that mode of fight mode, it's actually gospel. And here's why: because I'm not that guy who can fight angry. I have to be at peace. I have to be at total peace. I have to have my mind and my heart, and my spirit, my breathing 100% at peace. You know, I'm a man of faith, and I realize that I could do nothing without him. You know, and I know that, you know, when I get into that cage, I had to become an animal. You know, I had to become that guy. But for me to bring that guy out, I have to be at peace. And that's what I love about the Marvel movies, about the Hulk. The Hulk said this line, and they was getting ready to fight, and it was like, don't you got to go get mad? And he was like, well, I'm always angry. You know, but on the outside, you know, he was at peace. But he's like, when it's time to go, he transformed. Like, I'm always angry. And then he hit the thing. So that's what me, like, I get at peace knowing that whenever I step in, that animal's about to come out, you know.
And that's perfect because that was the next question I was going to ask. And kudos on the Marvel reference because I'm a huge Marvel buff. My wife and I own them. We great movies, love them all. But what you said there is, like you said, he's always angry. But with you got to be at total peace. So when you get into that ring, how is it hard to flip that switch? Like you said, become an animal in that cage.
No, not at all. It's almost like I'm petting him, I'm petting him, I'm petting him, and then it's like we touch glove, boom, and it's like, here it is, like, go have some fun. You know, because you got to think about it. All my life, I've been told, oh, you do this too hard. You do this. You too big. You too that. Now I'm actually doing a sport where, you know, even when I wrestled, I really didn't take out all my energy or aggression. I just was better than everybody. So I just did what needed to be done. Football, you know, once again, just did what I need to be done. But you got shoulder pads, and helmets and stuff to protect you. Now in MMA, ain't nothing protecting you but a 5-ounce glove. You know, so now I can be free and be me and let everything out and not get in trouble for it. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's like I can actually be free and let everything loose. So that, yeah, it's not hard at all to flip that switch.
And see, that's the way I look at it too. I'm 38 years old. I've never been in a fight in my life, and I always looked at sports as just being that outlet. And I think that's why, is I always got to take it out on somebody on a field or on a mat or on a baseball diamond somehow. But that's exactly it. It always felt like just that release valve. It was a way to get everything out. And you said it perfectly. That's exactly what it was. You pet that monster and animal until it's time to go, and then you just let it go. It's a perfect example.
And I really want to show people, like, look, you can be a man of God and still be out here fighting. Even though
Absolutely.
like the two don't mix. Like, how you out here, you preach and do all this and you doing the MMA. They just same thing, and that's what I'm really interested in showing the world, for real. That you can do both, have both, and live both, and not be in a box of a Christian or a box of an MMA fighter, because the MMA world is something different than the box of the church. And no, it's all one big melting box. Now I'm gonna carry both mantles very well, so I'm excited about it.
That's amazing. That's a great message, and kudos to you for bringing that into an MMA world where, like you said, it's kind of a kill or be killed type of business almost.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. Did MMA really seem like a no-brainer to roll into due to your accomplishments on the mat?
For everybody else, yeah. For me, like I told, and Houston often bring this up. So I started training with Houston when I was 15 years old. Once again, through Curly Alexander. Curly Alexander was my coach, and I was the wrestling guy. So they brought me in to wrestle with him right before it was like 4 or 5 weeks before he was about to fight Keith Jardine. So I came in and I was his wrestling partner, and so that part of it, everybody's like, "Oh man, you're gonna do great!" Like boom, boom, boom. But to me, I told Houston, like, "Look, I'm a pretty boy. I ain't trying to get hit." Long hair at the time. I had braids. I was feeling myself. I was like, "No, I ain't about to get hit." So at first, it was definitely something that I wasn't about to partake in. But it wasn't until a year ago in October, September actually. I just had gotten the role. I was, I'm a husband. I got 3 kids. I got the dad weight, the dad belly, and in my mind, I'm like, look, you still got it. But in my body, I was 315 pounds, and I really just kind of given up, on myself. I was just like, I'm just going to be a dad. I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to get my kids ready. But everything inside of me was like, it was just like pushing me, like, come on, it's something inside of you. So I was training this guy down here in Missouri, in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. And he was like, bro, why didn't you fight? And I was like, well, I'm 27, I'm too old. He was like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, there's people in their mid 30s to late, 30s that are UFC champs. And that's when I looked up Daniel Cormier. And Daniel Cormier was a 2-time state champ. He wrestled for Oklahoma State. He won his first fight at like 33, and I'm like, he's 5'11", I'm 5'11". He wrestled, I wrestled. He was a 2-timer, I was a 4-timer. I was like, bro, why can't you do it? So then that's when I met my boxing coach, and I went from 315 to 254, and now I get it.
Seems like it was just kind of a done deal from there. Did you kind of just get that itch where you haven't competed in so long? Like you said,
Yeah.
that feeling was still in your body. It was just was it just a matter of basically getting off your butt and getting to it?
Yeah, and just knowing that it was actually something that could be done. Like for me, if I see somebody do it and I'm like, man, I can do that. That's what it took. Like this wasn't something that I was wishing for or pulling some strings. Like this is something that can actually be done. Like when I literally sat there and watched Daniel Cormier, and I literally watched him for a few days, and I watched his videos, his documentaries. I'm sitting there watching, like, I can do this. And not only can I do it, like, because as a competitor, you be like, I'm better than that guy, and I feel like if you don't feel that way, then you shouldn't be in the sport. Whether you win, lose, or draw, if you don't feel like you're better than the next man, then to me, you shouldn't be in it. So in my mind, I'm like, man, I could do that. I'm a better wrestler. I'm a better striker. This is what I'm telling myself. I'm hyping myself up like, okay, what you need to go do. All respect to Dan Cormier, and he has a phenomenal career, so that's what kind of got me for real.
So with Dan Cormier, basically is that who you would like to mirror after then, as far as your MMA career?
Dan Cormier, yes, him. I love the motor of Cain Velasquez. I love how Khabib shoots. I actually wrestle like Khabib. I actually wrestle like a little guy, so a lot of low singles, ankle picks, high crotches to the ankle, under the knee part area. Just watching those type of relentless fighters and their conditioning. That's what I love about Cain Velasquez. He has a tank like no other, and that's the type of tank that I want to have. Now I got to get myself in shape a lot more. And then I look at fighters like Holyfield, how, in the 15th round, he still got that bounce. And, he's still moving and still bouncing and still in shape. So that's over this next year and over my career. That's what I want to emulate, a fighter who just tank is just never empty.
I think that's hopefully what any fighter would strive for, is just a tank that never depletes. Because I see it quite a bit. You see them wear out within halfway through the second round. It's just because that cardio is just not there. And if that's what you're striving for, that's amazing.
And then you see, because I always like to beat the standards. Like, heavyweights, there's not a lot of movement, so you ain't got to move that much. And I'm like, well, no, pace, because that's how I wrestle. I take you down, let you up, take you down. I try to take every single person I wrestle. I try to beat them by 15 points. I try to get 8 or 9 takedowns a match. I'm like, I put all this work in practice. I might as well display it. So I'm like, if I wrestle like that, then why not fight that way? So.
Yeah, I think in anything, it's got to be completely all out, or you might as well just stop, because if you're not giving it your all, what's the point?
Exactly.
All right. Well, let's see. What I got here is, what were your thoughts and feelings going into that first fight, as far as you talked about that fear of failure? Did you already go over that in your head, as if I lose this fight, where do I go from here? What's going to be the strategy?
For me, it was just just thinking about what is it going to look like? What conversations am I going to have? I didn't really want the pity parties. Oh, it's okay. It's your first fight. And to me, and I hold myself to a high standard. So I'm like, you always been great. You always been amazing. You always been phenomenal. So I don't know no other expectation than that. So that is that pressure that I place on myself. You know what I mean? That was, can I live up to that? And my dad really talked to me, and he really humbled me. And he calls me Burger. That's my nickname. And he was like, you got to look at it, that was your first fight. You're not going to be perfect. Imagine your first wrestling match. You wasn't doing all of this stuff. So it's a real humbling experience, and I'm just going to take it stride by stride. It was great that Houston came back there. He calmed me down. He was a great mental help, for me to get ready and get prepared, and kind of talk me through it and stuff like that, even though I didn't do what he told me to do, because I got in there and got anxious. He was like, just calm down next time. And, so it was great. It was great. You take a guy like that has been on the highest stage, and helping you on your first, fight is phenomenal.
So what do you think about, I know you're new into your MMA career, but when you look at guys that have come into the sport from WWE, you've got Brock Lesnar, you've got CM Punk, Bobby Lashley's done it, Jack Hager, I believe, was in MMA for a stint. And other than really Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley, they don't really perform too well in that very first match, especially in CM Punk's first match. Mm-hmm. And now you don't see them wanting to really do it after that. Do you think that may have hurt the sport, with them almost taking this almost not so seriously, but it's just something to try?
I don't think it necessarily hurt the sport. I would say that they got their rude awakening. What I mean by that is, if somebody tells me, and I love playing golf, that, hey, go out there and play golf with Tiger Woods, I'm not about to beat this man. You know what I'm saying? I'll get out there, but I'm not about to beat him. And a lot of those fighters, just because they were big and strong, trained for 6 months, maybe a year, and just hopped into it with the best of the best. That's like if somebody came off the street and wrestled for a year and tried to take me on. It's not going to happen. So to me, you got to have a great respect for the sport. And I commend all those guys. Brock had a great career, and when he tried it, but there's just a great level of respect for the sport and what you're doing. If you're going to do it, then you got to be all in. And it's rightfully so. You're probably going to take your lumps. You know, if they threw me into the UFC right now, I think I would do really good, but I know there's going to be some lumps that I'm going to take just because there's been people who've been doing it for forever. And that's not me cowering down. It's just the truth. Like, there's going to be some people who've been doing it their whole life that's going to be better. Now, I just got to, you know, rise to the occasion, and what happened was going to happen. But that's why I'm training so hard now, because that's my dream. That's my goal. And I want to be the UFC heavyweight champ. So.
No, that's got to be the ultimate goal. I mean, I'll tell you what, that day comes, Ron. We're going to need you back on here. And I want to see that belt either around the shoulder or up on the wall behind you, but we're going to need you back on here when that happens.
We could definitely do that. We can mark my words on that one. So we could definitely do that. Yeah.
All right. I suppose we'll wind it down now. And basically, I'm just going to let this off to you. What do you got coming up? Let's see, any projects that you're in other than the sports world. It's really up to you. Let us know what's going on.
So simply, I got another fight January 30th. It'll be in Omaha, Nebraska. We're just working out the contract and some things, but I got my opponent. They sent me information over, so we're going to fight January 30th under Dynasty Combat Sports at Ramada. So that's going to be a fun event. Currently talking with Houston right now about going to some different camps once COVID clears up. Like I said, he has a lot of connections, so he's helping me to get my name out there and get around a lot of these, you know, high level guys to be partners and to get some work with. So that's what I'm very excited about. Just training and keep training and pushing the gospel. I work as a counselor in an alternative school. And I love it there with the kids. Those are my guys. So just continue to be an everyday person. That's one thing I always want to be, is an everyday person. I don't want to be that big shot that moves away from the people. I want to stay connected. That's what I learned from Houston. Even when he was on the top of his game and a celebrity, for real, he never left the people. Never left the people, never moved out in the hillbillies. He stayed with his people, you know, and that's the kind of person I want to be. The person that stays with his people, stay around his people, and impacts his people, because one day my time is going to be up, and I got to be able to look at that time as, did I really help somebody get to their next goal, or was I just only focus on me? You know, and I don't want to be that guy who only focus on me. And I got all of this stuff to show, but I don't have no legacy to follow it. So that's my goal.
That's amazing. Ron, thank you so much for joining us. I got one more question for you, and this is all credited to Houston. And I'm going to do this every single episode because of him. Yeah. What is your favorite color?
Houston, boy, he's something else. Red. Red is my favorite.
Man, that's perfect. That's the perfect color to say, especially for this show.
And, all right. You know, I credit something else to Houston. And me and Houston played this game where we hate on each other. So I want to let you know that the interview you did with Houston, I thought it was horrible. I thought Houston did horrible. I thought that he funked up the interview. I thank God that you were on there and you saved the interview, because Houston did horrible.
Ron, thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words.
I told you, Houston, I was going to get you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. This has been the spinoff with the Scarlet and the Cream Husker podcast. You can find the video of this on my YouTube channel, Brian Knutson. You can find the audio on our podcast anywhere you can find podcasts, at the Scarlet Cream Husker podcast. Find us on Twitter at the Scarlet Cream. Ron, thank you again so much. And next time we have you on, you're going to have that UFC belt. That's what I'm guessing.
Yes, sir. Let's do it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for reaching out to me, and I appreciate it. This was awesome.
You bet. Thank you.